what I've intended to do with this is take us through the resolution step by step. This is the title of the resolution. Next slide, please. The next slide is, of course, referring to the fact that an available veterans cemetery for Orange County veterans is only basically Riverside National at this point. Riverside National is a long ways away. We've heard from many who have said their loved one is buried at Riverside National, and they rarely are able to get out there to visit the graveside. As you can see, the Great Park is located right in the center of Orange County. Gypsum Canyon is located at the edge of the county. Gypsum is closer to Riverside National. But that's the configuration that we have here now. The need for a veteran cemetery is obvious, I think, to all in this room and to thousands and thousands outside the room. Why don't we go on to the next slide? This just summarizes the fact that access to Riverside is difficult and really deprives Orange County veterans of the kind of closeness to home that a veteran cemetery in Orange County would provide. Next slide, please. There are, of course, some state cemeteries, but all the state cemeteries are in Central or Northern California, essentially unavailable to us. Next slide, please. In 2013, newly elected Assembly Member Sharon Quirk Silva, who I think then was head of the Veterans Affairs Committee as a freshman, assembled a number of us in her office, and we began the process of trying to identify a site in Orange County that would be not only suitable, but as it turned out, described by many as perfect for a veterans memorial park and cemetery, and that was in the Great Park on what was formerly known as the ARDA site at the northern end of the Great Park. So it was my privilege and pleasure on March 11th, 2014, to push for an expression of strong interest that we had in locating a state veteran cemetery at the ARDA site in the Great Park. Next slide, please. This is where the ARDA site is located. The green is, of course, the Great Park. In the lower left, for those who want to kind of orient themselves, the yellow is the balloon site in the Great Park. At the northern edge of the ARDA site is Irvine Boulevard. At the southern end of the Great Park is Marine Way. This area, the ARDA site, was indeed approved as part of a resolution expressing our intent to make 125 acres, that's the size of the ARDA site, of land then adjacent to the Great Park, now it's part of the Great Park, available for use by the California Department of Veterans Affairs for the establishment of the Southern California Veteran Cemetery. That night, when we adopted that resolution, there were as many veterans as are here tonight. And I can tell you, there were tears in the eyes of many of them, and my own as well. That was a remarkable achievement, a remarkable offer. We were on our way to getting a veteran cemetery here in Orange County. Next slide, please. Just to orient yourselves, those who served at El Toro, the black boundary line is the base. The park is, of course, kind of in the center, is 1,300 acres. It's on land formerly that was the base. And the ARDA site, which is part of the Great Park, is pretty much in the center of the old base. With that, why don't we move on to the next slide? So, Assemblymember Quirk Silva was really quite skillful in navigating a piece of legislation through the legislature, designating the ARDA site as the appropriate site to commence cooperation, state cooperation with local government, to develop, design, construct, and equip a state-owned and state-operated Southern California Veteran Cemetery right there at the site. It was in legislation. Next slide, please. Pursuant to that legislation, CalVet not only sought federal funds, putting us on a priority list, but prior to that, had prepared a massive 333-page concept plan for the Veteran Cemetery at the ARDA site. 333 detailed drawings, instructions, studies, costs, all of it. That put us on the priority list for federal funds. So we were on our way. The anticipation was that we would have altogether all those aspects of the park, of the Veteran Cemetery, within the Veterans Park that was the ARDA site. We would have it all put together, state-funded, open and operational by Veterans Day 2019. We were on track to do that. That particular course of action was reaffirmed. It was confirmed and reaffirmed by a vote of the Irvine City Council in 2016. Next slide, please. Then the trouble began. The then 5 Point Communities Corporation got involved in trying to, frankly, get back the ARDA site that they had deeded to us in a transaction in 2010. They proposed a land swap, which I'll describe in a moment. But the 5 Point executives at that time were bound and determined to use the ARDA site for office, commercial, industrial, and residential development, bringing 5,000 to 10,000 cars per day to that site. In exchange, they said, they would donate, I'm not sure quite what that meant, donate the strawberry fields down near the I-5 and I-405 interchange, the Spaghetti Junction there. Although those strawberry fields sound great and for growing strawberries are great, the noise, the inferiority of that site as compared with the ARDA site is easily discerned just by looking at where it is. This launched a major fight in the city of Irvine. Citizens overwhelmingly wishing to see the Veteran Cemetery developed at the ARDA site, which everybody had agreed upon. But instead, there was this offer from 5 Point, which put the city into 2 to 3 years of real turmoil. Let me just hasten to add right here, right now, that was the 5 Point leadership then. The leadership at 5 Point Communities now is of an entirely different nature. They say they have no interest in the Veteran Cemetery matter. Whatever ultimately happens there, and they will not be involved in any campaigns or political activities one way or the other. Again, that was leadership in 5 Point Communities back then. We have different leadership now, and they're not a part of the struggle. Next slide, please. So the City Council in 2017, that was when our supervisor, Don Wagner here, was mayor, as I recall. The City Council proceeded to rescind the designation of the ARDA site and instead designated an alternative site, the Strawberry Field. That was official City Council action. This prompted a citywide referendum, the biggest referendum campaign in the history of the city, a volunteer-driven effort to reject any notion of a land exchange and to see to it that the original site, the ARDA site, remained intact and that we move forward. So this referendum, which required some 13,000 valid signatures in 30 days, actually was put on the ballot because there were over 19,000 Irvine residents who signed. And so there was a referendum election called for June 5th, 2018. The then leadership of the 5 Point Communities put $900,000 in that was reported. Other related entities put another $500,000 that were reported in order to, on the referendum, encourage people to say yes, yes to the land swap. The residents of Irvine who had qualified the referendum had about $75,000 to $100,000 raised at the grassroots level. It was a hard-fought campaign. Incidentally, every signature that was gathered had to be gathered one at a time, one after the other. And so the election was held. And next slide, please. And the result was 28,000 to 17,000, 63% to 37%, rejecting the land swap. Next slide, please. And restoring the veteran cemetery plans to the original ARDA site. Excuse me. Let me finish, please. You'll have your opportunity. Next slide, please. The residents knew exactly what they were doing when they rejected the land swap. But they went on to do something else. They launched their own initiative campaign. An initiative campaign that required people going out, one signature at a time, gathering nearly 20,000 signatures to put an initiative on the ballot that would zone the ARDA site for veteran cemetery purposes. In order to gather 20,000 signatures, there's no question but that the volunteers had to talk to 50,000, 60,000 different people. It takes a long time to explain what an initiative is about and how their signature could make a difference. I would venture to say that in gathering signatures, 80% of the people were favorably disposed toward following through on our initial plan. In the end, this then went to the city council. Ironically, the last of the signatures gathered were in the weekend just before the state shut down for COVID. But with the signatures submitted, the process was in place to put the matter on the ballot. Now, under initiative law, a governing body is duty-bound to put the initiative on the ballot. If they refuse to put it on the ballot, they can instead adopt it as legislation right there. And this is me speaking as a seasoned politician. The council members sitting there then knew this would pass overwhelmingly if it were on the ballot. So they said, well, why don't we just pass it right now? And it will be the law of the city that can't be changed as a result of our adopting this initiative. That's precisely what they did on May 12th, 2020. Next slide, please. This describes a little bit of what was in that initiative. Remember, it was to rezone the site, reestablish that the ARDA site would be for exclusive use by a Veterans Memorial Park, cemetery, including a perimeter park, gardens, all of the attributes of a Calvet-approved Veterans Cemetery. Next slide, please. Incidentally, before I forget, that $6 million that is required for the grading of the perimeter park is already being allocated by the city of Irvine to build the perimeter park. Next slide, please. This is Cadence near Poussin Way now. Next slide. With the perimeter park, an elevated perimeter park, this is the way it will look. This is one designer's rendering. Obviously, others have different ideas, but clearly this would be between the Veterans Memorial Park and Cemetery and the residents in the Great Park neighborhoods. The Veterans Cemetery itself would be more than a quarter mile away in the interior. Next slide, please. I'm just going to read this for those who might have trouble reading it. Whereas, contrary to the will of Irvine residents and expressed in Measure B and in the Build the Great Park Veteran Cemetery Initiative, on October 26, 2021, the then-sitting City Council adopted Resolution number 21-66, indicating the city's support for an Orange County Veteran Cemetery at a 280-acre site near the 241 Toll Road and Gypsum Canyon Road in Anaheim Hills, and effectively abandoned the city's efforts to secure support from Calvet for placement of the Southern California Veterans Cemetery in Irvine at the ARDA site. This is a factual recital that you wish to respond as you do. It's your right. I don't see how it adds to the discussion that we're going to have here tonight. With that, let's go to the next slide, please. So what are we talking about when we have a veterans cemetery? A veterans cemetery includes in-ground burial, although the most recently established veterans cemetery in the Central Coast had only columbaria available, that is to say, appropriate enclosures, storage for veterans' ashes in funeral urns. The Central Coast Veteran Cemetery that opened was, I think, 5 years before they had their first in-ground burial. But of course, this is what a veteran cemetery, wherever it is, would look like. I want to make really clear tonight that I have no quarrel with Gypsum Canyon. I have absolutely no quarrel with it. It's not a competition in my mind between the two sites. The resolution tonight is about the city of Irvine on its own establishing a municipal, a city, Veterans Memorial Park and Cemetery. Cities around the country do this. Now we have an opportunity, as I see it, to move ahead in the city of Irvine, but not in conflict with those who would wish to establish a Veterans Memorial Park that serves not only veterans, but as I understand it, first responders on the civilian side, and also, of course, would serve as a cemetery for private individuals, and it would be a public hybrid or tribrid even cemetery. I think that's a novel concept.